Hello Visordown viewers, Chris Moss here. I'm about to ride this, the Indian Sport Chief. As you can see, it's a cruiser. It's got a few new bits to set it apart from the other three Chief models. It's got new upside down forks, a fairing, new piggyback shocks that are a bit longer to give it more ride height and ground clearance, different seat, and it's got sporting pretensions. Now, if I'm dead honest, I'm not the biggest fan of cruisers, and though I've got an open mind to how well it might perform, I think it'll have to be pretty good to win me over. Let's go and see. Right, we are here in Spain, just north of Barcelona. It's a performance cruiser, it's a 1900cc V-twin, and it's got lots of torque, more than a Suzuki Hayabusa, would you believe? Yeah, just so different to what I'm used to riding. Riding positions just very alternative. But the motor, and I'll show you what I mean, just ridiculous torque, man. Right, okay, that was in fourth. Let's bag it up to sixth straight away. I'm in sport mode. Just super low revving. I mean, 2000 RPM in top gear. In fact, 1500. Slight shudder there, but it's got the drive of a Scania. Right, the verdict after riding it, I don't know, I've probably done 120 miles or something in the hills above Girona in Spain. A ride of two halves, really. Cruisers are not my thing, and I have to say I hadn't even got out of this hotel's car park before I decided I was going to hate this bike. The riding position is just bizarre. It's got really high bars and the footrests are too far forward. When I extended my arms and legs, didn't meet with what I wanted to. I had to place them in an awkward position, and I really thought after 10 miles I'm just not going to get on with this thing. It just felt too awkward and too unnatural to get anything out of. And I thought once we start going faster, it'll just be a liability. Then I started clattering the footrests off the floor because the ground clearance is quite restricted. And I just thought, this is the end. I might as well just go back to the hotel and just pass it as a non-starter for me at least. But as time went by, I got used to that stuff and I got won over by other things as well. The engine is an absolute gem. I mean, it's 1890 cc's of pure muscle. It's just so torquey, so strong with its delivery. Not intimidating, really quite smooth for starters, and given the fact that each cylinder is a 945cc single thing with pistons probably the size of dustbins, I expected a bit more vibes than it has. But any gear, particularly the big ones, just whack the throttle open and it just pulls like a Scania would. Really, really impressive. It's just, as I say, relaxing. You can be super lazy with it. The gearbox itself, it's got quite a slow action. It's not what you'd call slick or refined. But just like what I'm going to come to, in due course, once you get used to that, it adds to the sort of endearing quality of the bike. Yeah, this is just one of these sort of leave it in a big gear. I'm in fourth now because it pulls from bugger all. It's got massive speed range in every gear. Ooh, this is good.
The round TFT dash is stylish and at a touch delivers loads of information. Pity it takes around 30 seconds to display that info when it's first switched on.
Now, that riding position, I eventually started getting used to it, and what seemed ungainly and precarious, particularly some of the slow stuff like doing U-turns at the photo shoot, just became, I don't know, far less challenging. And I just got over the fact that it was just a bit unnatural and seemed to be just awkward. And what I'd thought might be impossible to deal with early on, just, I don't know, it turned out to be quite simple and straightforward.
The bike's front brakes are one of its very best features. High-spec Brembo one-piece monoblock calipers bite on twin 320mm discs to haul up the Indian impressively well. The rear stopper's pretty good too.
Now the ground clearance, that didn't get any better, but you just adjust your style of riding, as though you would in the wet, for instance, not to use too much lean angle. Go deep into the corners. The brakes are really quite something. Loads of power, excellent feel, and supported really well by the suspension. It doesn't collapse, it doesn't wallow about like most cruisers do. It's very sporty. As the name suggests, you know, it's just got sporty potential. The shocks, similarly, you don't notice them. That's the biggest compliment I could pay, really. They just do what they should do and offer lots of support. They do not restrict fast riding. Tyres, similarly good. You know, as a package, and a sporting package, once you sort of learn to deal with it, it's actually quite a fast motorbike. Now, not everything is good. I had a bit of a problem with the switchgear. It's a keyless system, and the button to arm the bike is very close to the starter button, and quite often I switch the thing off rather than trying to, well, than getting it going. The rear cylinder gets a bit on the warm side, particularly in town. When you put your feet on the ground right next to the cylinder, you get fairly toasty inside thighs. It closes down in when the bike's at a standstill, or when the ambient temperature is over 15 degrees, which it has been all day today. It shuts the rear cylinder down, but it's still a bit on the toasty side. Super relaxing style, man. Not to be hurried. It sort of seems wrong to hustle this thing. Bloody hell, 4th gear there. That ground clearance, you never quite forgive the whole thing. It's still ultimately a restriction, but you've got to take real notice of the footrests once they start clattering down, because as they fold, things like much more solid things like the silencers start hitting the deck, and I think you'd get into fairly serious trouble. You just have to ride it really accurately and with quite a lot of anticipation. You've got to read the corner well. Quite like the TFT Dash. Tank range looks as though it'd be pretty good. Style, I mean, look at the engine. It looks as though it's been hewn from solid granite. This is a meaty looking bike with a lot of presence. I mean, okay, there was a lot of us today when we went through town, but this is a bike that gets looked at and gets you noticed. If you're in the business of, you know, wanting attention, then this is a very good choice.
Price for a black Indian Sport Chief is a fiver under 20 grand at 19,995 quid. For the grey or red bikes, you'll need to pay 500 quid more for some strange reason.
Yeah, overall, just a very different style of motorcycling, and though I didn't want to like it, and certainly didn't to begin with, I've ended up finding it quite an endearing thing that's given me a very enjoyable day's riding. A word about the comfort. The seat is pretty comfy, though it is a single seat, so if you've got any friends, you'll have to buy an accessory which you can bolt on very quickly in order to carry those guys, or girls. The fairing does offer some wind protection, but I think you can probably only sit on this for an hour at a time because the riding position's a bit awkward. Your arms are just in a slightly unnatural position. Today we've ridden all day and I feel absolutely fine, but we did have breaks fairly often. But I think the sort of guy who's going to buy this bike won't want to just, you know, clock hundreds of miles in one stint, so I think it'll be okay. Yeah, one of the surprising things is, despite the fact it weighs 302 kilos dry, once you get going, it's quite an agile thing. We rode on some bloody challenging roads today, but flicking it from side to side, from footrest to footrest in fact, didn't require big biceps at all. It was quite an agile bike. Now, would I buy it? Do you know what? If I had tons of money and I had 5 or 6 bikes in the garage, in that dream garage, I think I'd consider it. It's not an everyday bike, but as a special occasions bike, you know, in the sun, particularly in somewhere like this, I think it's a bike that I'd very happily, I nearly said put the key in there, but it's keyless, but get out of the garage and get some miles done on.